Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the buffed Jinan. Again. I feel like I've made this video a few times already. They keep buffing this ship. What have they done this time? Well, just a slew of small changes. More HP, better alpha damage on your HE, more fire chance, as well as higher torp alpha. It results in Jinan being a bit of a monster now. I already found Jinan to be a pretty good ship overall. It already had some of the scariest torpedoes to deal with in the entire game. It gets us smoke, it gets us torpedo reload booster, as well as some very solid main guns. They weren't Colbert levels, they weren't quite Smolensk levels, but they were still very, very strong light cruiser guns. And you do get this smoke screen to farm out of on top of this amazing torpedo power. Ships like Colbert, ships like Smolensk don't have this insane torpedo power. The range on these torps, you got yourself 13.5 kilometers of range on them. They also have really high alpha damage, and most importantly, they're deep waters. So people don't spot them. 0.8 kilometer detect. Sure, they don't hit DDs, but that's not that big a deal when battleships and cruisers get absolutely nuked by these things without really the ability to dodge. But all these buffs have added up to make a ship that is, in my opinion, a little bit too strong now, perhaps. Although, I gotta say, in this passive campy meta that we have these days, maybe Jinan buffs are fine, maybe this isn't too much. I found myself in games like this one where people would push into me and just look at the damage rack up in this game. It is crazy how much damage you can farm as people are pushing into you. But that assumes people are actually pushing into you, right? Let's be honest, this rarely happens these days. Most of the time, people are very content to play that pre-kited roll at 20 kilometers and just fire from maximum range. And for Jinan, that makes life very, very difficult. This ship still does not have very good shell velocity. These shells take forever to reach their target. They're even worse than ships like Colbert. They're worse than ships like Minotaur. It's really bad. It's really hard to land shells in this ship at longer range, even though it does have some nice base range, 15.5 kilometers. So you're afforded to take reload mod without too many issues. Unlike Smolensk, for example, where you probably want range mod on that ship. You do have to lead targets, and it can be quite difficult at those longer ranges. Super battleships are a bit of an exception since they are so large here. Notice eating that torpedo, Jinan still no hydro options. So in this smoked up HE spammer roll, I'm sure you destroyer players know how juicy it is when you find that light cruiser or even battleships trying to hide in smoke. It's so juicy to go and torp them out, right? So for a Jinan, you still have to be aware of that. But this alpha damage, this fire chance, I gotta say, I really noticed the extra fire chance. These buffs are pretty minor, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a lot. 30,700 base HP now goes up to 32,500 base HP, which amounts to about a 5% HP buff, which we can then stack. These torpedoes went from 17,900 to 18,800 alpha damage, which can deal with a Patrie very easily. Absolutely insane damage here. But that still amounts to about, again, a 5% alpha damage buff on these torpedoes. Not earth-shattering. This HE shells here, 1,800 alpha damage up to 1,900 alpha damage. Again, around 5% alpha damage buff on this HE, which is decent. I mean, 5% isn't nothing. But when it comes to the fire chance, we went from a base of 9% up to a base of 11%. That's an over 20% buff. And I noticed it. I really noticed it with this ship. You just consistently are getting so many fires out of this thing. But again, we have that problem of what if people just don't push into you? What if you have to play more aggressive? Well, you're still a light cruiser. It is very scary to push in a ship like the Jinan here. This Sejong has spotting from their Shima, so I'm forced to smoke up here. Although we did manage to launch our Torp Salvo, which does help us out to take this Sejong out, and now we can freely push towards the Shima, but we never managed to find him. Over 200,000 damage in such a short match. 9 torpedo hits, as well as a ton of HE pressure. Jinan is absolutely crazy, but this pushing in, what happens if you get caught? Maybe we should queue up that incomparable clip where that poor Jinan did not deserve to die. Ooh, yes. Hello, Jinan. What was that? Game? Oh, what? What was that? Bro, you cannot tell me this is a serious game. You cannot tell me this is a serious esports ready competitive game. You cannot say that. What was that dispersion? That gives a dev strike? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Okay, Mr. Jinan player, I'm sorry. If you happen to watch this video, I apologize. That was the worst dispersion ever. Ever. And it gets a dev strike. That is not fair. That is not fair. That is not fair. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it can certainly be tough out there for light cruisers, especially when battleships have just disgustingly awful dispersion and still one-shot you bow on. That's where maybe the HP buff is the most impactful one here, helping you survive, although two incomparable citadels, especially since I was running heavy AP there, probably still would have got him if this, even with this buffed HP. So it can be rough, okay? Just because I think this is a very strong ship now, it's very, very challenging to play. Don't get me wrong. These light cruisers are super hard. Some of the most difficult ships to play in the game. Light cruisers and destroyers. They have the least HP. They have the hardest time. They get punished the most for making a mistake. Yes, they have great DPM. Yes, they have great battle impact with spotting, some of their utility as well, DDs especially in that case. But you die very, very quickly as a result of that extreme power. Very difficult to play. So in games like this, which are all too common when people kind of just run out of your range, it's going to be quite difficult. We're gonna have to make use of Jinan's very good concealment to push up into positions without firing our guns, and then we can set up in smoke and hopefully farm a bit of damage before they get out of our range. One of the massive benefits of Jinan is its consumable layout, especially these smoke screens. The fact that they come back very quickly, 110-second cooldown base, really, really useful. It's not like we're an American ship with American smokes, where you can set up for over 2 minutes sometimes in the same spot and farm. That's often not very useful, as people will either die if they stay in that for that long, or they're just going to run out of range. So the extra duration isn't as useful as the flexibility Jinan has with these smoke screens. Here doing a little bit of open water to try and get that gearing, but for the most part, I'm just looking to reposition here. Having done that now, we've jumped ahead a long ways, I know, but it takes some time to reposition, and it's well worth it a lot of the time to sneak your way into a better position where people are pushing in. You want to recognize the flank that the enemy team is pushing, and sacrifice some time to go there, and then you're going to be rewarded, hopefully, with a lot more damage. You notice, though, the instant I smoked up, Rhode Island went dark. That's a pretty classic thing to happen to me in these smoke cruisers. Smoke up to farm a guy, and I realized too late that I was the one, unfortunately, spotting him. You got to be careful with that. I make that mistake all the time. Fortunately, Minnesota was still lit, so we got some damage, as well as those torpedoes, the spin-to-win torps. And yes, the elephant in the room. Look at this reload, by the way, and the damage we're going to get on this Rhode Island. It is arms race, to be fair, but over 5k alpha damage there, 4k there. And I think we get a double fire here as well in that short period of time. Absolutely wild. We have triple reload arms race buff though. So essentially we have Austin reload booster just perma attached to our ship is kind of what we have here. I'm a little worried about shooting. I'm not going to blind fire this Shima in this case because I want to go undetected. Shima is lighting us from our smoke fire detection. So you notice we go dark here very quickly. Fortunately, our teammates managed to take out the Rhode Island for us, so it wouldn't have mattered. But if that Rhode Island had made it around that corner, I still would have been covered a bit by my smoke. I would have tried to get out of there rather than stay lit. And look at this just absurdity. Like, it's arms race, okay? It's arms race. It is arms race. So we got to keep that in mind. But this is possible. Absolutely crazy. Forgive my aim, by the way. I'm not very good with these light cruiser guns, so you'll have to forgive me for missing a lot of these shells. Some of it could be dispersion maybe, but let's be honest, we can't blame that all the time. We have to take accountability for our misaim, especially when people are turning. Jinan's shells being so floaty like this, even if we aim high like this, our shells are still going to land short. The floatier the shells, it seems like the more they're impacted by the aim assist in this game. The game doesn't know the Salem is turning. The game thinks the Salem's going to continue in a straight line. So to help you, it's thinking, oh, you're aiming too high. Let me pull those shells down and actually hit the target. Without the game knowing that the target's going to be further away because he's turning away. That's the problem with the aim assist in this game. It impacts battleships a lot. I'm very annoyed by it, but certainly light cruisers as well. In this case, I might not be aiming high enough. There's quirks to the aim system, there's bugs, and then there's just flat out I'm aiming incorrectly. It's hard to tell what is happening when we're firing so many shells at a time, though, to be fair. There's our Confederate, and just, I mean, the sheer number of fires here. We're on 13 fires already in this game. Absolutely wild. Yes, we have a lot of hits as well, but did you notice we got all 4 fire locations on that Satsuma at the beginning of this game? It's kind of crazy. It is crazy how much fire chance you have. I think it's 13.5% with the special commander here. It's absolutely wild. Salem close to an island. Again, we have to worry about those shells around islands. It's a little bit tricky to deal with. And we don't full pen his hull here, so that is why we're struggling to deal damage. I'm just relying on fires and maybe the odd hit into his superstructure here. Pushing into a Salem, Des Moines, not the best idea. But we've managed to bring this game back, which feels pretty good. And I'm hopeful I can finish off this Salem, and then maybe I can smoke up. Maybe Des Moines used all of his radars at this point. But I don't want to smoke up quite yet, because I'm the one spotting Salem. It's not my teammates. So we have to stay lit and open water this guy. Very risky, but I know this time not to smoke up because I need to take out this Salem, and hopefully our teammates can help us finish off the Des Moines at that point. Another damage control up to 18 fires now, and hopefully we can get another one. Salem's very difficult to kill when we're reliant so heavily on fire damage. That's 100% healable by his super heal. But our DPM finally kicking in. Double fire again. We got 20 fires in this game already, so he should die to those fires, and we finally smoke up, hoping that this Des Moines has run out of radars at this point. And in fact, he gets 2 of our front turrets, so we're missing a lot of our DPM. Probably could swap to the AP here, but it's so funny to light all 4 fire points, isn't it? So let's try it. Oh no, he's got his radar still. I was hoping, but unfortunately he does have his radar. So we are going to go down here, but maybe we can get all the fire points. We got 3 of them. Again, being very greedy to get the clip, right? Unfortunately, no, we don't quite get all 4 fire points on him. Lucky for us, we have some good teammates to finish off this game, and we do manage to win it. That arms race buff was insane. Absolutely wild to have that level of reload on a Jinan. These buffs aside, Jinan was able to do that before. It's not like we got a reload buff, it's just the alpha and fire chance. 23 fires into this one. Absolutely wild game, buffed by arms race. So there is a bit of an asterisk to this one, I will admit. Jinan, though, when it comes to battle impact, doesn't have a radar. So how do you impact those initial DD engagements? Well, you push up close with your DDs. That smoke screen can help you live very aggressively pushed up with your destroyers. Assuming they're getting into DD engagements like this, our Hoffman, I think, is hydroing this poor Regulo. So in this case, yeah, poor guy. The damage output, though, back to normal, no arms race here. Still very fast reload and really nice alpha damage here on the Jinan. Dealing with destroyers is really not too big a deal with this ship. When they're at these closer ranges, that shell velocity can be a bit of an issue, of course. But if you're looking to win more games, try and focus more on getting close enough to the cap to help your destroyer in that initial destroyer engagement. That's always going to help you win more games than, you know, 20, 30k more damage on a battleship, for example. DD damage is so important. In this case, I know I'm not going to get shot at, really. I mean, there's a Shikishima at long range. It's not a big deal. So doing the blind fire thing and managing to finish off that Shimakaze. Our DPM is very high, and at those ranges, we can sort of do that blind fire thing into smoke. So a really good example of going after destroyers and helping the team that way. But not a lot else happened that game because, as you noticed, they were running off the screen. It's hard, man. It's so hard to play these days when there's ships that have decent range. I mean, 15.5, like we're at like Des Moines levels of range on this light cruiser, and it's still hard to be in range all the time. Montana pushing in, so we are in range here, but notice as soon as this guy is going to go down, the rest of the enemy team is pretty far away from us at this point, and we're relatively close to the middle of the map here. It's difficult, okay? I think Jinan is awesome. I think this buff makes it borderline overpowered, but given the current state of the meta, it's not, okay? I can't honestly say that, given how people play this game. And for good reason, let's be honest, okay? You don't want to be caught inside Jinan's range. The torpedoes, the damage output of these main guns, the smokes to keep you hidden. I mean, look at how quickly we've killed things that have been within our range. That Patrie pushing early game in that first clip, like, ships die so quickly when they push in. So it makes sense people learn that pushing equals dead, and I want to play a video game, so therefore I won't push in right away. And it just results in more and more passive games. I don't blame the people for playing ships like that. It is how Wargaming has designed this meta, after all. It's more on Wargaming to craft the meta, craft game modes, craft matchmaker, craft new ships that promote pushing in without just the only counter to those ships being run away and clump up, right? That's unfortunately been the counter to Libertad, right? How do you deal with Libertad? Well, you run away from it and focus it with like 5 to 8 ships, and that's like how you deal with it. How do you deal with a carrier? You run away and clump up. How do you deal with a sub? You run away and clump up, right? That's kind of the problem here. So many ships these days are promoting you to run away as the counter. It's a little unfortunate. That Z-52 though, what a play, right? Hydroing us and swapping to the AP manages to take us out. Very difficult to play aggressive though in a Jinan. But it's still a strong ship, man. These buffs are absolutely wild when people push into you. And just before we get into the build here on the Jinan, just to quickly talk about that Libertad point some more. I was so hopeful, man. You guys remember when Libertad was released? I was so hopeful it was going to lead to a more close range focused meta. I was hoping this was the first step towards ships that are all going to push in at one another, and we're going to get more close range battles. You guys are right, though, that pointed out that the only way to really counter it is to run outside of its secondaries and focus it down. That has certainly played out, and I'm a little sad about that. It was an effort, I think, on Wargaming's part to promote a more close-range focused ship and line. Unfortunately, the way it's played out, though, is the best way to counter it is to run even further away, which is sad, but that is the truth, unfortunately. A lot of this stuff, the answer... There's a lot of different ways to counter some ships. There's a very limited number of ways to counter others. But what is on every list of how to counter a ship is to run away from it, unfortunately. And that seems to be the case with Jinan as well. Utrecht, certainly a new example as well. Libertad as well. Like, you just don't want to be caught up inside the gimmick range of these ships. And Jinan is crazy now. The power level, I didn't think it needed a buff. As far as the strength of this ship goes, the alpha damage on the torps, the alpha damage on the HE, the fire chance, 13.5% fire chance, absolutely wild. This ship has the best fires per minute in the game, by the way. Even better than Jacksonville, Colbert, Worcester. It's the highest fire chance, or fires per minute, in the game. Absolutely crazy level of fire chance here. And you have more alpha damage, or DPM, I guess I should say, than a Smolensk. You have slightly less base than a Smolensk, but thanks to your extra range, you can afford to easily run reload mod, where for a Smolensk, you get less than 14 kilometers of range in a Smolensk. You're probably going to run range mod. At least I find myself wanting to run range mod on Smolensk, the odd time that I do play it. That feels a little bit too limited in range on that ship. And if you're doing that, well, you're missing out on 12% DPM. Jinan overtakes, and it already had higher fire chance, fire RNG, fires per minute is what I'm looking for as well. Very, very powerful ship here, Jinan now. And it already had the torps too. Crazy, crazy powerful ship, but still, it can explode. It can easily get one shot. Even with this new HP, we get close to 40k. Two incomparable citadels is enough to deal with that if you're running heavy AP. Also, that citadel is above water. You got to be careful. And while this 32 millimeters can protect you if the battleship does not overmatch 32, much like Austin, at closer ranges, you can start to bounce some shells. There's some luck involved, but there's a skill element of bouncing battleship shells at closer ranges. As soon as they overmatch that 32, though, oh boy, that is scary, because now you're suddenly you're just in Atlanta at tier 10, and that is going to hurt quite a lot. These torpedoes are awesome. Your AA is okay. You're not going to be the first target. I suppose you always have defensive fire. There's no option to swap to hydro, so you're probably not the first target for carriers to go after, which is nice. You also have the smokes to get away and recover from the focus fire, or just get undetected, so you're not the first target of all the spotting, and then all those long-range ships try to deal with you early. And it's nice to have a smoke. It really is. As for the build I was running, it looked a little something like this. Deciding not to buff the torps with Pack-a-Punch. I mean, the alpha damage skyrockets then, of course, but I find most of the consistency comes from the main guns with Jinan. The torps already smash people, right? Like, getting hit by these is already a death sentence. So do I need to buff that further? I don't think so. At least that's my idea behind it. I am taking Fill the Tubes, though, to get them back a little sooner, but not necessarily the alpha damage buff. I'm going for the alpha damage on these main guns. So with that, our HE gets 2090 alpha damage, compared to 2,100 on the AP. So our HE almost has the same alpha damage as the AP in this case. Absolutely wild stuff. And again, that fire chance is crazy. Jinan is so I hope I'm getting across how conflicted I am with this ship. I don't think these buffs were necessary strictly from the damage output and the power level of this ship. But relative to the current meta, maybe Jinan needs some more help, because it's so hard to play it in the current meta and get those scenarios where people are actually within range. And you can make use of the incredible power of this ship. It's hard to use. Positionally, it is very, very hard to use. But when you get in those situations, well, you saw the video at this point, right? It is crazy the damage output it can accomplish. And it's very fun to play because of that. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and have a great rest of your day.